My aunt tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal my dead grandmother's $410,000 house from me. For 8 months, she dug through my past, harassed my ex, and even broke into my home to build a fake case against me. She thought she could manipulate the system and leave me with nothing. But 3 weeks ago, her entire plan collapsed, and TT ended with her in handcuffs on my grandmother's front lawn. My grandmother left me her house, and my aunt tried to have me declared mentally incompetent to steal it from me. I'm 29 years old, and this actually happened, starting 8 months ago and ending 3 weeks ago, with my aunt in handcuffs on my grandmother's front lawn. I need to back up. My grandmother, Rosalind, raised me from age 11 after my mom died of an overdose. My dad was never in the picture. Grandma Roz didn't hesitate. She just took me in, enrolled me in school, showed up to every parent-teacher conference in her good coat. She had 2 grown kids of her own by then, my Aunt Denise and my Uncle Phil, but neither of them offered. Denise said her condo didn't have room. Phil lived 4 states away and said the same thing long distance. So it was Grandma, at 61 years old, raising a grieving preteen alone. I lived with her until I was 22. She paid for community college, then helped with my transfer to a 4-year school. When I got my first apartment, she drove 3 hours to help me move boxes. When I got engaged 2 years ago, and then unengaged 4 months later, because my fiancé turned out to be cheating with his coworker, she was the one who sat with me on her porch every night for 2 weeks, not saying much, just being there. Denise, meanwhile, visited Grandma maybe 4 times a year, always for a specific reason: needed to borrow money, needed her to babysit, needed her opinion on paint colors for her kitchen. Phil called on holidays. That was the whole relationship. So when Grandma passed away in October, after a short fight with pancreatic cancer, nobody in the family was shocked that her will left her house a paid-off 3-bedroom in the town where I grew up, worth about $410,000 to me. She left her savings account split between Denise and Phil, about $60,000 each. It wasn't some spiteful, unequal thing. She explained her reasoning to all of us, in writing, months before she died, sitting all 3 of us down at her kitchen table. "I raised this girl," she said, looking at Denise and Phil. "I'm not punishing either of you, but that house is going to the person who spent her life in it with me." Phil nodded, said he understood, and honestly, he was fine with it the whole time. Denise smiled and said, "Of course, Mom, whatever you want," right there at that table. 2 weeks after the funeral, Denise stopped smiling. She showed up at the house, my house now, though the estate was still in probate, with a folder, not a purse, a folder, like she was there for a meeting. "I've been thinking," she said, standing in the doorway I'd grown up walking through. "Mom wasn't in her right mind at the end. The cancer, the medication, I don't think that will reflects what she actually wanted." I remember standing there holding a box of Grandma's photo albums, just staring at her. "She wrote that months before she got sick, Denise. You were there. You said you understood." "I said what I said because I didn't want to upset her while she was dying," Denise snapped. "That's different from agreeing with it. I should have known right then this wasn't going to be simple, but I still thought, foolishly, that Denise was just grieving badly, lashing out, and that it would pass. It didn't pass. It got worse. 3 weeks later, I got served papers. Denise had filed a petition to contest the will, claiming Grandma lacked testamentary capacity due to cognitive decline related to illness and medication at the time the will was signed, except the will was signed 11 months before her diagnosis. Denise's lawyer, some guy named Gary Prentice, who advertised on bus benches, argued that Grandma had early undiagnosed symptoms that affected her judgment. I hired a lawyer myself, a woman named Farah Odom, who specialized in estate litigation, using money I'd been saving for a house down payment. Ironic, considering I now legally owned a house that was under attack. Farah looked at the petition and told me flatly, "This is weak, really weak. Your grandmother had a doctor's note confirming full mental competency, dated the same week she signed the will. Correct?" She did. Grandma, it turned out, had been sharper than any of us. She'd anticipated exactly this kind of fight and had her longtime physician, Dr. Okafor, write a formal capacity assessment the same week she signed everything, specifically so nobody could challenge it later. She'd told me once, almost offhand, "Denise is going to have feelings about this, sweetheart. I'd rather leave you the paperwork than leave you the argument." At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious, Turns out she knew her daughter better than I did. Farah filed a motion to dismiss based on the doctor's note. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Denise's next move was where things got genuinely disturbing. She started calling people, not me, around me. My old high school guidance counselor, whom she somehow tracked down, asking about my emotional stability as a teenager. My ex-fiancé, of all people, whom she found through Facebook and asked to describe our breakup in detail. A former roommate from college. She was building a file on me, specifically to argue that if the will got reinstated after her capacity challenge failed, she'd pivot to a second argument, that I was unfit to inherit and manage the property because of documented instability. I found out about this because my ex-fiancé, Marcus, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, and who I genuinely never wanted to hear from again, texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, this is weird, but your aunt called me asking a bunch of questions about you for some legal thing. Wanted you to know." She was asking if you'd ever had a breakdown during our relationship. I told her no because that's not true, but wanted to give you a heads up. I sat on my kitchen floor, Grandma's kitchen floor, and cried for probably 20 minutes straight. Not because I was scared of losing the case. Farah kept reassuring me the capacity claim had no legs. I cried because my aunt, my blood, was digging through my worst year looking for ammunition to use against me 3 weeks after her own mother's funeral, while I was still finding Grandma's reading glasses in random drawers around the house and losing it every time. I called Farah the next morning and told her everything. She went quiet for a second, then said, "Okay, this changes things. This isn't just an aggressive relative anymore. This is starting to look like a pattern of harassment, and it might actually help us if it escalates further, because it shows intent. But I need you to document everything from here on. Every call, every text, every weird interaction. Screenshot it, save it, date it." So I did, and it escalated fast. 2 weeks after the Marcus text, I came home from work to find my back door unlocked. I always lock it, always. I stood in the kitchen with my heart hammering, walked through the house room by room with my phone in hand ready to call 911, and found nothing missing that I could tell. No signs of forced entry, which meant whoever got in had a key. Denise had a key. She'd had one for years, from back when she'd occasionally house sit for Grandma. I'd meant to get the locks changed after the funeral and just hadn't gotten around to it, because who thinks their own aunt is going to break into their house? I called her. "Did you come by the house today? I stopped in to grab some of Mom's things, yes. Is that a crime? I still have a key, and technically the estate isn't fully settled yet. The estate names me as the sole heir of the property, Denise. You can't just let yourself in." I grabbed her jewelry box and some photo albums, Emma. "Calm down. They're mine as much as yours." They were not, legally, but I didn't have the energy to argue jewelry with her when what actually scared me was that she'd been inside my house alone, going through my things, possibly looking for more material for her file. I changed the locks the next morning, all of them, plus I put in a doorbell camera, which felt insane to be doing at my own grandmother's house, in the town I grew up safe in. The jewelry box thing became its own issue, because it turned out that box contained Grandma's wedding ring, which she had specifically left to me in the will, plus several pieces that had been in the family for 3 generations. When I asked Denise to return it, she said she'd misplaced it. When Farah sent a formal letter, Denise's lawyer responded that his client did not recall taking any jewelry. That's when Farah told me we needed to get the police involved, not just the civil case. This is now theft and unauthorized entry, on top of the will contest. I want it all on record. I filed a police report. The responding officer, a younger guy named Ramirez, took it seriously once I showed him the doorbell footage timestamp. Even though the actual break-in had happened before I installed the camera, the footage showed Denise coming back a second time, 3 days later, standing on the porch trying her old key in my new locks, looking around like she was checking if anyone could see her, then leaving when it didn't work. That footage is genuinely one of the eeriest things I've ever watched. My aunt, a 56-year-old dental hygienist who used to take me to get ice cream when I was a kid, standing on my porch testing whether she could still break into my house. The will contest hearing happened about 6 weeks after that. Denise showed up with Gary Prentice in an ill-fitting suit, and I showed up with Farah, who was calm and precise in a way that made me feel like everything was going to be fine even when my stomach was in knots. Dr. Okafor testified about Grandma's competency assessment. The judge reviewed the capacity documentation It took less than a day for the judge to dismiss Denise's petition entirely, calling it wholly unsupported by any medical or documentary evidence, and noting on the record that the timing 11 months before diagnosis made the claim facially implausible. I thought that was the end. I really did. I remember walking out of that courthouse and actually laughing, this relieved, exhausted laugh, and Farah smiling and saying, "Go home, Emma. It's over." It was not over. About 10 days after the hearing, Phil called me. My uncle, who up to this point had been almost entirely uninvolved, sounding stressed in a way I'd never heard from him. "Denise called me last night. She wants me to join her in a new filing. Something about guardianship." My stomach dropped. "Guardianship over what?" "Over you," he said. "She's saying you need a conservator because of mental instability. She's saying if she can get you declared incompetent, the house reverts to the estate and gets redistributed, will or no will." I actually laughed out loud, this horrible, disbelieving laugh, because it was so absurd. I have a full-time job as a project manager at a logistics company. I have no psychiatric history. I pay my bills on time. The idea that anyone could look at my life and conclude I needed a legal guardian was insane. "Is she seriously going through with this?" "She already filed," Phil said. "I told her I want no part of it. Emma, I need you to know I am not with her on this. I think she's lost her mind over this house." I called Farah immediately, and for the first time in this whole process, I heard her actually get angry on my behalf. "This is a bad faith filing," she said. "Guardianship petitions require substantial evidence of incapacity. We're talking documented psychiatric conditions, inability to manage basic affairs, that kind of thing. She has none of that. This isn't just weak, Emma. This is sanctionable. I want to look into whether we can go after her for vexatious litigation." But before any of that could happen in court, Denise did something that finally, completely, blew up in her face. She'd apparently been telling people around town, her friends, some of Grandma's old neighbors, even a woman from Grandma's church, that I had serious mental health issues, and that the family was handling it privately. This got back to me through, of all people, Mrs. Alvarez, who'd lived next door to Grandma for 30 years and who called me directly, confused and concerned, asking if I was okay because Denise had told her I'd had some kind of breakdown. I sat with that call for a long time after I hung up. Denise wasn't just trying to win a legal case anymore. She was trying to destroy my reputation in the community where I actually still lived, where I still had to see these people, where Grandma's memory still mattered to everyone around us. Farah's advice was to keep documenting and let the guardianship petition fail on its own, which she was confident it would. But I decided I needed to do one more thing myself, something Farah didn't advise but didn't stop me from doing either. Because she said, quote, "Honestly, at this point, I think you've earned it." I invited Denise to the house, told her I wanted to talk, no lawyers, just us. Try to salvage something of our relationship before this went further. She agreed, sounding almost hopeful, which told me she genuinely believed she was the wronged party in all this. She showed up on a Saturday afternoon. I'd set my phone up on the bookshelf, recording, which is legal in our state as a one-party consent state, something Farah had confirmed for me beforehand just in case. "I'm glad you called," Denise said, sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where Grandma had told us her decision months earlier. "I think this has all gotten out of hand. Maybe we can figure out some kind of arrangement. You could sell the house, split it 3 ways. That's fair, right?" "Denise, why do you think I'm mentally unstable? Genuinely. Walk me through it." She hesitated. "I don't think you're unstable, Emma. I think you're young and grieving, and this house came with strings you don't understand: taxes, upkeep. It's a burden, and I think Mom put an unfair weight on you. Then why did you tell Mrs. Alvarez I had a breakdown? Why did you call my ex-fiancé asking about my emotional stability? Why did you file a guardianship petition against me?" Her face changed. That particular kind of change, when someone realizes they've been caught rather than confronted. "Where is this coming from?" "I know about all of it, Denise. I have the police report from when you broke in. I have doorbell footage of you trying to get into a house that isn't yours. I have Marcus's texts. I have Phil telling me about the guardianship filing before your lawyer even served me. You've spent 5 months trying to destroy me to get a house." "It's not just a house," she snapped, and here it was, the thing underneath everything, finally coming out. "Do you know what it's like watching Mom favor you your whole life? I raised 2 kids on my own after my divorce. I worked full-time, and she never once drove 3 hours to help me move. She gave you everything and I got what? $60,000 and a pat on the head? She raised me because my mother died, Denise. You had a choice not to take me in. You made it. I didn't get some prize. I got a childhood without my mom in it. She didn't have an answer for that. She just sat there, and for a second I almost felt sorry for her. This genuine grief and jealousy tangled up together that had curdled into something ugly over 5 months. Almost. Then she said, "You're recording this, aren't you?" I didn't deny it. Yes. She stood up so fast the chair scraped hard against the floor. "You manipulative little, this is exactly what I mean. This isn't normal behavior. Setting traps for your own family. Get out of my house, Denise." She didn't get out. She grabbed the chair like she was going to throw it, didn't, but slammed it back down hard enough that one of Grandma's mugs fell off the table and shattered, and started screaming, genuinely screaming, loud enough that Mrs. Alvarez next door came out onto her porch to see what was happening. Loud enough that I actually got scared for the first time in this whole ordeal. I called 911 while she was still yelling. Officer Ramirez, the same one from the break-in report, arrived within about 8 minutes. By the time he got there, Denise had stormed out to her car in the driveway but hadn't left yet, and when he asked her to calm down and step away from the vehicle, she apparently shoved him, which is when things went from a family dispute to an arrest for assault on an officer and disorderly conduct, right there on Grandma's front lawn, with Mrs. Alvarez and 2 other neighbors watching. That video, the recording from inside the house of her confession about the jealousy and the plan, combined with the arrest and the police report, ended up being the thing that finally broke the whole case apart. Farah used the recording where Denise essentially admitted the not just a house resentment predated and motivated the entire legal campaign in the guardianship hearing. The judge dismissed the guardianship petition outright and, on Farah's motion, sanctioned Denise for bad faith litigation, ordering her to cover a significant portion of my legal fees. Denise pled to a reduced charge on the assault, got probation and a fine, no jail time, which honestly I was fine with. I never wanted her in prison. I just wanted her to stop. Phil and I are actually closer now than we've ever been. He calls more, feels guilty he didn't step in sooner, and told me he's not speaking to Denise right now. Not out of some dramatic stance, but because, in his words, I don't know who she became this year, and I don't want to find out what she does next. Denise and I haven't spoken since the arrest. I heard through Phil that she moved to a smaller apartment after some financial trouble, and that she's been telling mutual family friends a version of events where I'm still somehow the villain of this story. I've stopped trying to correct that narrative. Some people need you to be the bad guy so they don't have to look at themselves. Update. About 3 weeks after all this settled, I'm still in Grandma's house. I fixed the mug, glued it back together badly. It's more crack than mug now, but I kept it on the shelf anyway because she used to put dried flowers in it. I finally finished unpacking the last of the boxes from probate last weekend and found a letter she'd left me, dated the same week as that kitchen table conversation, that I hadn't found until now. It just says she knew this might happen, that she loved all her kids, but she knew what fair actually looked like even when it wasn't equal, and that she was sorry if it caused me pain, because the last thing she wanted was to leave me a war. I think about that letter a lot. I don't think she was sorry for her decision. I think she was sorry she was right about how Denise would react. Either way, the house is quiet now, in the good way, the way it used to be before all of this, and I finally feel like I actually live here instead of defending a courtroom exhibit.